I'm Drew.
And I'm John. This episode and every future episode is dedicated to all the horror hounds and smokers out there who want to expand their knowledge of the genre and have a good time.
If you're a fan of the Friday the 13th series, you're in luck, because today we have yet another Friday the 13th episode for you. Today we're discussing Friday the 13th Part 2, one of the best ones, and we have Vickie from the movie, the lovely Lauren Marie Taylor, with us today to talk about it. All that and more today on High on Horror. Interviews, reviews, and the latest news all rolled into one.
And now it's time to get to Screaming Room. And this week we have episode 2 of the 3rd season of Creepshow, exclusively on Shudder. And the two stories from this episode was the first one, Skeletons in the Closet, and the second one, Familiar. And again, I gotta say this week I like the first one better. I mean, it was an homage to the slasher genre, and I mean, some other films as well. I mean, I can't even begin to name, like, every film that they had some kind of Easter egg to.
Really? You like the first one more? I'm glad we didn't talk about this beforehand. I'm a fan of the second one. I like Familiar more.
No, I liked all the skeleton work, like the stop animation, or like Jason versus the Argonauts, like claymation. Although we were talking, it's kind of hard to tell if that's CGI or that really was like the stop animation.
It might have been both. It might have been stop animation
That's
with
true.
like some CGI over it, or some just, maybe some not so good CGI that almost looks like stop motion. But yeah, Skeletons in the Closet was directed by Greg Nicotero, and I fucking guarantee you that all the props in that segment, you see all those life-size movie statues of Jack from An American Werewolf in London, and the creep from Creepshow. I guarantee you that all of those are props from the K&B office or workshop or whatever where Greg Nicotero works. I have seen many interviews with Greg where he is sitting in front of these life-size movie props, and it's funny when you know how low-budget film projects work, because you can see the thought process and ingenuity that goes into it. Easy money, save money, and use your own props. Hell yeah, perks of being an FX guy. Also, there's a comic book sequence that is intelligently used to save time in the episode as well as money, because that scene would have required some legit special effects work. But they got it out in a few drawings. I dig it. Good episode. Homages to Phantasm, Psycho, and more. What else did you catch?
Oh, I'm sorry, did you say Halloween?
No.
I mean, yeah, you had that, Jason Goes to Hell, Phantasm, dude, there's just
the Miner's Mask from My Bloody Valentine.
Yeah,
there was a Jason Goes to Hell bust or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it was like a bust. It was like a shoulder piece.
Yeah, it was the same with like the Halloween mask. And like I said, I thought that James Remar kind of almost looks like they kind of modeled him after John Carpenter a little bit. He had the long hair and the mustache.
Yeah, it was like, what if John Carpenter was like a snooty, like, film critic or art critic or something like that? It's kind of taking him out of the director's chair and putting his like demand and his popularity in the spotlight of, like, I don't know what you would necessarily call him, a film critic. I don't know, a film historian maybe. Historian's probably collector.
And then, the second one, I was a Babadook looking motherfucker.
No, yeah, that one was directed by Joe Lynch, who, we're a big fan of. We love Joe Lynch. He's friends with Adam Green, and we're big Adam Green fans as well. I thought that this segment was solid as hell. It might be one of my favorite episodes of the entire show thus far. It doesn't have as much going for it as the first segment does, Skeletons in the Closet. And it's more of like a tight-knit story, so there's not much to talk about without giving stuff away. But this one is creepy and has good makeup and a really legit-looking demon. The demon looks legit. I'll leave it at that. But Familiar won the episode for me. We're on opposite ends here.
Yeah, and I also thought of Familiar, it almost kind of reminded me of the Leprechaun with the whole crate thing, where there's just like a voice coming out of the crate.
I'm more creepy, maybe.
Yeah, but like it kind of had that like kind of same...
Agreed. I agree. Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely like the first one better. So I mean, it was obviously the better one. So you'll just have to deal with that.
Okay, well, we'll smoke on it and talk about it. I think we're ready to smoke, so let's get into Strainwreck. Now it's time for Strain Wreck, the segment where John and I discuss which strain we're getting wrecked on in each episode. Today, we're smoking another new strain called 5150. It's a hybrid bud and another strong diesel strain. It's not as strong as the shit we smoked last week. Regardless, it's good shit. I'm super baked. This is more of a mellow baked. Last week was comatose baked. John, check it out.
All right. I don't know what 5150 is, but it looks like some like Matrix shit here on the bag.
Smells good, don't it?
You know what? It kind of smells like it has the fruitiness of the turbulence, but like the diesel smell of the gas money. It's kind of like a combination of both of those.
And it's one of the it's one of the newer strains, like I mentioned, just like them. So yeah, it makes sense. Maybe it's it could be spliced with some of those. It's still so new. We need to do some more looking into it. But yeah, like you might be onto something there.
And this is one of the first ones I think that we've had that really wasn't too dark with like the purples. It still has a little bit of that orange on there, but it's mostly just straight green.
It's just green with a little bit of orange.
It's like a pale green, like olive green, I'd say.
Yeah, it's more of a lighter shade. Absolutely. Well, I'm going to spark us up, man. What's going on this week in horror history?
This week in horror history.
Well, this week we got a bunch of films celebrating anniversaries. David Lynch's cult classic, Eraserhead, Lucio Fulci's Don't Torture a Duckling, Burnt Offerings. But today we're going to talk about Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers from 1995, and the seminal classic from 1988, pun not intended, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark.
Man, I just want to say, it is just fucking draining talking about Halloween 6, bro.
I mean, there's so much to talk about. There's the theatrical cut, the only movie that I know that also has a producer's cut. I've never ever heard of a producer's cut before this.
All the hype about that producer's cut, and all they gave us was some goddamn little frozen meatballs. Those fucking runes were absolutely prepackaged meatballs. Changed my mind.
And I've told you this. I also agree that the producer's cut's worse, but I don't know what it says about me when I choose to watch it. I always choose to watch the producer's cut. I don't know why. I think it's because I could just crack up at the fucking frozen meatball runes every time, and it still cracks me up. Who in their right mind thought that Donald Pleasance, who, let's be honest, he looked like he was on his deathbed making that movie, who thought, you know what, we're going to pass on the curse of Michael, we're going to pass it on to fucking Dr. Loomis, and he's going to go around killing people? I mean, damn, how strong is Thorne?
I want to know if he would have donned the mask or if he was just going to rock that trench coat.
I mean, his face looked better because he got them skin grafts, though.
But look, you had said that you find yourself watching the producer's cut more, even though you dislike it more. We just talked about that shit last week. It's because it falls into such a bad movie category that you have an option of either watching a terrible movie, either taking itself seriously, which is horrible, or a terrible movie that takes itself so seriously that it turns into a satire. It's fun to watch in the sense that Jason X is fun to watch. It's so bad to enjoy. It's not like, it's like, comparing the producer's cut is, say, comparing Jason Goes to Hell to Jason X. It's like you got the theatrical, which is Jason Goes to Hell, and then the producer's cut, which would be Jason X. It's like two shitty movies, but one of them you can at least laugh at.
Yeah, and my man John, I mean, my man's just trying to lay down the law in the house. Poor John Strode. He's got his daughter, comes back with his kid. He's just a good father, and like these people walk all over him. I thought he was a real good guy.
You always like the assholes, man. But yeah, no, I really do not like this movie. I don't like this film. I've had Halloween fans over the years question me, and because I diss it, and they're always, oh, well, Michael Myers is evil and the kills are brutal and he's vicious, and I'm just like, okay, if you watch the first Halloween, you'd know that Michael was always evil, and you'd see that brutal kills don't make the original film great. There was not really any brutal kills. Bob getting stabbed against the wall, that's about as brutal as I can think, and it wasn't that brutal.
I mean, Linda was cut in half.
But it didn't show it.
True.
And because Michael is a big ox, doesn't mean that, that's a reason to like it. No, not a fan.
I just lost what I was going to say about part 6. But it did bring to an end the Thorn trilogy, our second. I guess if you include 3, it would have been the third timeline already. Danielle Harris not back as Jamie. Just some other random woman in there. Because I remember seeing it and I was like, who's this supposed to be? And they're saying Jamie, and I'm like, Jamie from 4 and 5?
I know. Yeah, that one throws you for a loop.
Yeah, and I mean, also, the producer's cut gives us Uncle Daddy Michael.
Uncle Daddy Michael, that is absolutely true, yeah. Michael keeps it all in the family.
Yeah, that's also another thing. Who the hell was like, you know what? Let's make Jamie Lloyd's kid Michael's baby.
You know what? He's so evil in this one. He's going to keep it in the family.
Yeah, he's going to pull incest.
Ugh. Anyway, let's get done with that. Let's talk about Elvira, man. What are your thoughts on Elvira, Mistress of the Dark?
How could you not like Elvira for what it is?
Exactly. Thank you for saying that.
It was a big part of my adolescence.
Absolutely. I'm a lifelong Elvira fan. Well, not a lifelong, half of a lifelong Elvira fan. I've met her twice, and I have, ton of original, I have a ton of merchandise, including the original Course cutout that's hanging behind you there on the wall. And Mistress of the Dark is absolutely one of the best horror satires ever. And that's why it's so popular, man. Everything it says about, everything about it says 80s. The music, the style, the wit.
For sure.
And Elvira is just so attractive, man. And, that's why men love her, and that's why women love her. She's sexy as hell. She's sassy. She's funny as fuck. And she transcends, like Jennifer Tilly. She's the whole package. She's, she was every horror fan's crush at one point or another. I guarantee it. She was mine. I personally became a fan of hers when I was about 13, which was a perfect time.
Yeah, and I like how in Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, how you have Bob, and he's playing the complete opposite of the blonde bimbo, where Elvira's the smart one, and he's taking the role of, the smart, dumb girl in the movie.
Elvira's dumb as hell. Pun intended, she's supposed to be. But she's the intelligent one in that relationship.
Yeah. And then I was actually reading a thing. It was saying that Kurt Fuller, when he did the movie, he was actually, because he plays a real estate guy in the movie, he was supplementing himself as a real estate guy, and he was taking, he was in real estate, and he was so convinced that he bombed his audition, which I don't know if you could go in and go to a movie of Elvira's caliber and think that you could have bombed the audition for that. But he thought that he bombed so bad, he went and told his agent that he was quitting showbiz, and then later that day he got a call to say he'd been offered the role.
That's his scenes in the film are absolutely hilarious.
Kurt Fuller I think he's highly underrated from the 80s and early 90s. He just makes me laugh in everything he's in. We talked about No Holds Bar, Wayne's World,
Scary movie.
Yeah,
he's even in Supernatural. I know you don't watch Supernatural, but he was in Supernatural for a few seasons as an angel, and he was a dick. He was a real dick. Zachariah was his name, and he was a dick, but he was still funny. And I just remember thinking, I'm like, yeah, John doesn't watch this show, but I bet if he watched it, he'd like him because he's a dick.
Oh man, Kurt Fuller's good at being a dick. like No Holds Bar. Like I just said. I mean, it's a bad example. It is a Hulk Hogan movie, but
well, back to Elvira. It's no secret. You know it. My wife knows it. Everybody knows it. Anybody who knows me and anybody who doesn't is about to know that she's my number one crush ever. She's my number one crush ever. I've been in love with that woman since I was a teenager. She's always been my dream girl, and it pisses my wife off, but it is what it is, because you know what? It'll never happen. She ain't interested in nobody to look like me. Let's be real. But back to the movie. Yeah, like you had said earlier, what's not to like?
Grab a tool and start banging.
I would have been on that porch right when they started, bro. Let's be real. I would have been right there. I would have been working on the steps with her right there. But yeah, look, I mean, What isn't there to like about it? What are you gonna say? The effects are dated? I've heard that before, and you know what? Boo fucking who? Go watch Ghostbusters and tell me that those effects aren't dated. Yeah, everybody loves that movie. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't praise one movie for something that you rip another for. It was made in the 80s. Deal with it. If you're gonna watch another movie and ignore those things, then watch Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and ignore those things. It deserves the same treatment. Because it's horror doesn't mean that you treat it differently. I hate that shit. Anyway, rant over. The ending boob shake.
I wasn't gonna bring that up, but she does show off her talents in the
Her talents, absolutely.
in the Vegas scene at the end. You were saying about the effects. I mean, if you're watching Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, are you expecting you're going to get like fucking James Cameron level, like
considering that
like
she's
special
known,
effects?
right? And considering that she's known for hosting B movies, you're
Yeah.
really going to criticize a movie for the effects? I mean, you know. And here's a knowledge nugget for you: Cassandra Peterson wanted Tim Burton to direct this movie, but he was making Beetlejuice at the time. I like Beetlejuice, but I have to say I would love to have seen his take on Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, because that was back in the day when he was actually making good movies.
Yeah, and Paul Rubens was supposed to make an appearance in it.
Pee Wee Herman?
Yeah. I think that was before his whole theater incident.
I would hope so.
Yeah, I think that was in the 90s. And now I think it's time to get on to Puff Puff Ask, the segment of our show where Drew and I answer questions that are sent to us through Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at High on Horror 420 and through email at highonhorror420@gmail.com.
Yo, man. Puff, puff, pass.
I'll start us off here with a question from a listener named Garth from Billings, Montana. He asks, what is something that you guys dislike about horror movies, and what are some examples? Okay, there's obviously a lot. There's a lot of things you can pick out about horror movies, especially the bad ones. My main one, I kind of have two main ones that really stick out to me, so I'm going to just stick to those. One of them is when a movie uses a scare and then reuses that same scare in either a sequel or the same universe. I've mentioned this. I'm sorry, in a prior episode, where I feel that once a scare is done, if it's done well and it gave the effect that you wanted it to do, then you need to let it go. Let it be that good scare. Let it work. What happens is a good scare will work, and then everybody goes, oh, we got to do more of that. And then they do more of that, and then it just wastes it, and it turns something that was original and useful into just another, not a contradiction. What's the word that I'm looking for? Another cliche. There we go. It turns into another cliche because you know what? The scare that was once something that actually rattled you or took you by surprise is now something that you're seeing coming around the corner. That's a problem. We need to preserve these things because that's what makes movies special, especially horror films. Most recently, I can give you an example of that. And The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. There's a scene that they stole directly from the first Annabelle film that was stolen from Mario Bava's Shock. I don't know if it originated in Mario Bava's Shock, the scare, or if, that was just the first place that I saw it. But that was the first place that I saw it. It's where in the film, it's someone small in the distance, and they run towards you, and then right as they get to you, bam, they're a large person or an adult. And it's just when you see a kid running towards you, and you're welcoming them with open arms, and then bam, they get to you, and it's not who you thought it was. Creepy as hell. Worked right away when I first saw Shock. It worked in the first Annabelle film because I didn't see it coming because I've never really seen it replicated before. But now here we are in The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It, and it happened. There's a scene where Lorraine is being lured in by Ed, and he pretty much pulls that on her. It's him, and he's calling to her, and as he's walking towards her, she's walking towards him, and then by the time he gets to her, bam, it's the witch, the villain of the film. And right away when it started happening, I knew what was going on, and that's what irked me the most about it. I saw it happening, and I thought, God damn it, they did it. They reused that scare again. and it's part of the same universe. So it's not like it's something that people haven't seen. The people who are watching The Conjuring have followed these movies, most of them, and you're just recycling scares. That is just the worst thing to me. That's why horror becomes so cliche and people rag it. That's the thoughtlessness that people put into it sometimes that gives it a bad name.
I was gonna say not just reusing scares, just that once something works for somebody's movie, it sometimes feels like any of the big studios are just like, put that in the horror movie because they don't know anything about the genre half the time. Oh well, that worked for that movie, put it in there.
Agreed.
And then that's again coming up where you're talking about it being cliche, is that's what happens not just with scares but everything.
I agree. And speaking of studios and all those people, my other thing that I really dislike about horror movies is not necessarily about horror movies, but about the people involved in them. I cannot stand when somebody uses horror to break through into something, or to even just make a horror movie that gets critical acclaim, and then they drop it they drop it from being a horror film and are, I didn't mean to make a horror film. I didn't know it was a horror film. When I was filming the movie, I didn't know I was making a horror film. But when I was filming this gory zombie movie, I had no idea that I was making like that type of shit. I hate it. And Danny Boyle, the guy who the talented dude who did 28 Days Later, he knocked it out of the park. He actually says that when he was filming 28 Days Later that he didn't think it was a horror film and he doesn't consider it a horror film. Just listen to that. How is that movie not a horror film? What about that movie says, it's a comma or a dramedy or a thriller? Dramedy, I said dramedy. A comedy or a drama or a thriller or science fiction. What else would you call that movie but horror? And you're actually going to sit there and say, I didn't know it was a horror film. And most recently, what really got on my nerves, it happened again. I just bought the Babadook set. You remember you were with me at Monster Mania. I just bought that Babadook set, and I was watching the extras on it. And one of the, I'm not going to name who it was. I'm not into, if you watch the extras and you have that set from Second Slate Films, you'll know what I'm talking about. But one of the guys that gets interviewed actually is like, we didn't intend to make a horror film. There was no intention behind it. When I was on set, nobody ever mentioned it being a horror film. I was actually surprised when it came out and people started saying it was a horror film. And then you talk to the director, Jennifer Kent, and everybody else involved in a horror film, and they're like, oh yeah, Jennifer Kent's a big fan of, impressionistic horror films and German horror films, and that's why the Babadook kind of looks, like the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Nosferatu mixed into one, and she's a big fan of The Exorcist, and there's all these Exorcist nods throughout the film and comparisons almost, and things that are mirrored from The Exorcist. And it's like, you have everybody, even the director, saying that they're a horror fan and that they made a horror movie, and then there's this one snobby producer who's going to sit there and be like, we didn't know we made a horror film. So you were the only dude in the room that didn't know what you were making? I hate that. Like, don't diss horror. Don't make a movie and then be like, it's not horror. Yes, it is, whether it's good or whether it's bad. If you make a horror movie, it is a horror movie. It doesn't turn into another movie or another genre because it gets good reviews. That's not how it works.
So I was trying to jump in there a couple times, but
sorry, I was ranting. I'm done.
I was gonna say, so you're trying to say that zombies are in horror? I've never heard of that in my life.
That's well, people will be like, they're infected in 28 Days Later. They're not zombies. Okay, fine. You don't want to call them zombies. Are they still not attacking people and like killing them and bashing their brains in and fucking puking blood on them?
I don't see how any of that fits in the horror. And I'm Babadook's horror. I don't see where you get with that. But to talk about some of my own, Josh, turn this up as loud as you can. Remakes. Now, granted, The Thing is a remake, and it's one of my favorite all-time horror movies. But the problem is, like I've harped on it with Black Christmas, they just make remakes, and it's a lot of times just, this was a popular title at this time, so let's use this again. Because it's supposed to be like a reboot, whatever, of Black Christmas. You look at Black Christmas, it came out, was it 2019? Somewhere around there.
I believe so.
It was recently enough. And you compare it to Bob Clark's Black Christmas. What is similar except they're in a sorority? Like Like, how is that? How's that a remake when it has nothing to do? Even like there was no politics in the original one. It was just a straight slasher movie, and they had the remake in 05, 06?
I believe it was 04, 05.
Or
Maybe it was 06. It might have been 06, yeah.
It was somewhere around
right around there, yeah.
And that one was really nothing like it, but at least it was close enough. And then this one, and then, I mean, other problems I have with horror, people think that Rob Zombie's Halloween's a good one.
Oh, shit.
No, I won't go down that, but yeah, remakes remakes are terrible for the most part. I mean,
may I butt in for a second? I want to say you're right. I wanted to chime in with what you were saying there. You're absolutely right, because one of the things, like Black Christmas is a perfect example, which is why I wanted to say this. It's almost as if remakes have lost what they're about. They've really just become a money-making machine, and that's what's so shitty about it. Like John Carpenter's The Thing is a remake of, Thing from Another World. Because, back then, movies were made that were ambitious and couldn't pull things off. And then, later it's like, hey, let's pull that off. And remakes used to be like remakes of the movies, and they used to honor them and just do things in a better way to say, hey, now we can do this. And it's like, as time goes on, it's like the only thing that's sticking around about these movies is the title. They're not even trying to remake the other movies anymore. They're just like, it's like, okay, let's kind of, and went from being a remake, now we'll just kind of keep like a gist of it, or maybe keep a character's name the same. And then it's like, the more it keeps going on, now it's like, well, it's titled the same movie, but it has absolutely nothing to fucking do with it.
I was kind of thinking about this, and it kind of goes in to one of your other gripes, but I was thinking about, like, we say the studios don't care about horror, and it's almost the same way with comedy. But it's funny because you can have highbrow comedy that's accepted by these studios, but they still call it comedy. You have the highbrow horror, which is your Silence of the Lambs and things like that. They find an excuse, like you said, to say it's not horror. It's just something about that label of horror. They don't want it. Even though they don't like comedies, you never see comedies winning Oscars. They can still have their smart comedies, and they'll still refer to it as a comedy.
Just another smack in the face, to the horror genre. Just another injustice.
Well, let's get on to our second question here, and it comes to us from, let me see here, Sarah from Independence, Missouri, and she wants to know if we think true crime and stuff like serial killers like Bundy, Dahmer, Gacy fit into the horror genre. I'd have to say, yeah. I mean, look at just one famous horror movie, Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, Maniac. I mean, there's fictionalized tales. I mean, true crime is the real version of that stuff happening.
I agree, and I think a lot of it has to do with the content. You can have a documentary or a movie about Ed Gein that's horror, and one that's thriller. It all really depends on how it's done. The ones in question, the ones in question though have to. I think that the ones in question have to cross a certain boundary in order to be horror, and a lot of these, a lot of them do. You're watching a documentary about, a guy killing people and even raping people in some instances, and doing these horrendous things, and it's, like we've said before, horror is subjective. What scares you doesn't scare me. Some people like gore. Some people will not watch a horror movie unless it's gory. Like, if it doesn't have gore, they'll think it's trash. So, like, nah, it's not gory. Gore doesn't make a horror movie a horror movie. Being scared makes a horror movie a horror movie. But my point is that everybody looks for something different when they're watching horror. Some people might be the gore hound. Some people might be the true crime person. But yeah, if you're watching a documentary about somebody who eats people or kills people and they're showing crime scene evidence, I just don't see how that goes into the thriller genre. I just don't. Yeah.
I thought of it. True crime is like nonfiction slasher.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, what's the difference between Michael Myers and Ted Bundy? Except Michael Myers is a fictional character you watch. I mean, it's being portrayed as real through the movie. I agree. Serial killers are just nonfiction slasher.
I agree. It is like nonfiction slashers, and it's the same thing. Like, it's just people trying to categorize things into anything they can but horror. Just because it's not something super scary doesn't mean it's not horror. Just because I don't find a movie funny doesn't mean it's not comedy. You feel me? But yeah, the thing about the documentaries and everything is that it really all depends on which one you're watching. But most people who watch these things are horror fans, and they're watching them to get their horror fix. So I'm not going to sit here and let anybody tell me that it's thriller stuff. I mean, when it's a thriller, I'll call it a thriller. That show it's a good show, not a documentary. But example, that's a thriller. That's not horror. You feel me? Watching what Ed Gein did or Ted Bundy did and hearing about it and watching the families cry, that's much more horrific than somebody getting stalked or, you know.
Yeah, I get what you mean. And I mean, we have movies that are labeled drama comedies. Like, a horror movie can still be a drama. Not to beat a dead horse and bring up Halloween again, but in a lot of senses, that's also a drama/thriller movie that you could, if people wanted to argue, you could argue that it's not a horror movie. But I mean, I always feel like a movie has to be horror, and then it has whatever subgenre it is, slasher, gore, paranormal. Whereas like I was saying, you could have something with a comedy or anything, and they'll call it a drama comedy or a dramedy, stuff like that. I mean, it can be horror and something else, but it's just nobody wants to have horror attached to it.
Yeah, like another prime example was The Sixth Sense was actually labeled as a supernatural thriller. What the fuck is a supernatural thriller? Yeah. How about just calling it horror? So it's to the point now where like it's not horror, it's about ghosts and it's scary as fuck, but it ain't horror. It's a supernatural thriller. We're gonna throw supernatural onto that thriller just to emphasize how it's not horror, even though you're scared shitless watching it.
I forgot. Sixth Sense is the movie that started that whole supernatural trend.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Like, it's like, oh, it's docudrama, so it's not horror. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. If you were in the horror book section and you were looking, if you were in a book section and you were looking for, just say that let's just say that books were broken up the way movies were by genre. If you were in a bookstore and you were looking for a book about one of these killers, do you think that you would find it in the thriller section or in the horror section?
True.
All right, well, we went on for a while with that. We're pretty baked. Sorry about that. Or not. All right, don't forget to write in your questions to us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter at highonhorror420 or email us at highonhorror420@gmail.com. Write us. We love hearing from you. Now it's time to get into our review/discussion of this week's film, Friday the 13th, Part 2.
And today's film celebrates its 40th anniversary this year, Friday the 13th, Part 2. And I'm going to give it to you straight about Jason. They brought him back for this one. Somehow now he's a man, but we're not going to ask questions about that. So it's 2 months after the murders at Camp Crystal Lake, and sole survivor Alice Hardy is recovering from her traumatic experience. And then in her apartment, she opens her refrigerator to get her cat some food, and she finds Pamela Voorhees' decapitated head just chilling in there. And she's murdered with an ice pick to her temple by an unknown assailant. And then we fast forward 5 years. Paul Holt opens a school for camp counselors on the shore of Crystal Lake, and it's attended by Sandra, her boyfriend Jeff, Scott, Terry, Mark, Ted, Paul's assistant Jenny, and today's guest playing Vickie, Lauren Marie Taylor. And then all of a sudden, we have some problems. The murders start picking back up. It's not a good time this summer.
I'm gonna start this off like this, man. I've always thought this, but I don't think I ever told you this. Tell me that Jason in Part 2 doesn't look like Sloth from the Goonies, grew a ginger beard, long hair, and lost weight in the woods.
Oh, that's rough, but yes.
But no, seriously, Part 2 rocks. It's one of the best ones in the series. Sackhead Jason is a little weak looking, but the kills are on point.
And I mean, let's be honest. He killed a handicapped person.
I was gonna get to that, but yeah, absolutely, just one of the most
He's vicious.
just heartless. Steve Miner directed this one, and he did a great job. His first 3 films actually are quite amazing. I don't know if besides John Carpenter, who did some, earlier things that, I mean, John Carpenter has a good resume. So yeah, besides John Carpenter, this might be the first strongest 3 films I've seen from a director. Steve Miner's first 3 films were Friday the 13th Part 2, Part 3, and House. I mean, that's a hell of a run for your first 3 movies.
Yeah, and then, I mean, in the 90s, he had some movies. He got involved in the Halloween franchise, too, with H2O, Lake Placid, 2008 Stay at the Dead. But,
Oh, I forgot about Lake Placid. That's right. I forgot about that one.
yeah, and he also had Warlock in the 80s as well. That was his 5th film.
I still have that on VHS. I haven't watched it in a while. I'm not a fan of that one, but I'll keep it on VHS.
He was also a production assistant and assistant editor on The Last House on the Left.
Oh, wow. A lot of people worked on that film. It's surprising.
It's crazy, yeah. I mean, Sean Cunningham was involved in it, too.
I know, and Wes Craven, and some of those guys, even the actors in the film were, at least one of them, did porn. There was a lot of people who broke in from porn into the horror business back in the day. That's the way it worked.
We have talked about this. There is a lot of crossover of porn and horror, and Wes Craven took it to his grave. He wouldn't say what he said he started his first 2 movies were pornos, but he wouldn't ever give up the names.
I mean, look, just for
Go find them on the hub, maybe.
Just for historic purposes, if anybody ever tracked them down or found them, I mean, I don't know. I don't look into porn like that. For all we know, they've been discovered, but
For scientific
I would watch
purposes.
them for historic purposes. What science are you getting out of it?
Don't question it.
But Friday the 13th Part 2 rocks. It's absolutely one of the best ones. The music's great. Amy Steele does a great job playing Ginny and being a good final girl.
And she was a lot of fun at the convention.
I agree. Yeah, and she was very fun. There's Part 2 is one of those ones in the series that, besides the unbeknownst of what happened to Paul, there's not much that I really have to complain about. I mean, besides it's for what it is, early 80s slasher film. I can compare it to a lot of other movies that are like it, but it is well done. It's low budget, but it is well done.
Yeah, and, I mean, geez, 40 years now. Jason's been lurking around in the woods. I mean, how old has he got to be now? If you're thinking about current day, it kind of starts getting into that Michael territory. You're like, how old are you?
It gets to a point where it's like that Scott Steiner math. It gets to a point where once you start hitting a point, you realize, like, oh wait, this don't add up, and you're better just backing off and walking away.
Kurt Angle knows he's not going to win, and he ain't even going to try.
So Jason's going to grow into a man and not even have a childhood.
He got 124, 2/3 chance of winning.
2/3 chance of killing. But yeah, it's like you're trying to add things up to an extent, and then you hit that crosswords where you're like, okay, wait, I get it. This is kind of Mod Podge together, and if I look into this too much, I'm gonna probably get mad and have a bunch of questions that I don't want to ask. So you know what?
Yeah,
suspension of disbelief.
We already
let it
dealt
go.
with that question like 3 weeks ago about Jason from Nicole. I mean, if you're asking too many origin questions, you're in the wrong place.
I agree, and actually, our guest today, Lauren Marie Taylor, is also in the underrated slasher film Girls' Night Out that John and I are big fans of. I really love it. John watched it with me a couple of weeks ago, and he really liked it. And I know a lot of people haven't seen it, but it is absolutely worth the watch. The killer wears a bear costume and uses a paw made of knives to slash and gash. I mean, slash gash, cut another hole in your ass. The twist is excellent, and there's some great characters in there, like Ralph Bostwick, played by John Didrikson, who has my favorite quote in the film. When he's asked why he's dancing, he replies, "It's the beer. Want some cherry lip balm?"
What the fuck? But anyway, I gotta say, it's a slasher movie. So, I mean, even if it's bad, it's still a slasher movie. People are dying, so I'll watch it.
Agreed. And I think that seems to be the running theme with a lot of slasher fans and horror fans is good or bad, give it to me, because we we know that when the slasher genre and horror in general hits on the spot, when it hits that G spot, when it hits the spot,
Okay, this gets real sexual real quick.
When horror hits that spot, it does it really well. And so, of course, slasher fans are always willing to watch all these slasher films because you never know, that's really one of those subgenres where there really are diamonds in the rough. You'll find a film from like 30 years ago that Arrow Video will put out, like The Prey or something. You'll be like, damn, I didn't even know that movie, like, I never saw that movie, but like, well, I've seen it, but other people have, but you'll see a movie getting put out from like 30, 40 years ago that's like a slasher film, and they're like, oh my God, I'll watch it. And even though it's cheesy, they're still either going to like it or they're not, but they're going to give it a chance because every slasher fan is always looking for that diamond in the rough, always looking for that slasher film they haven't seen that could surpass Halloween or the greats like A Nightmare on Elm Street or be compared with them.
Yeah, and I gotta say, we haven't talked about the real star of the film, the brown panties.
Lauren Marie Taylor, yeah, that's right.
That and the spray always make me laugh.
I mean, I gotta look. There's a lot of girls that come into situations unprepared. She was not. I gotta give her props for that. Vickie was getting prepared. She was making sure she was freshened up, smelled good, got the new panties on, even if they were atrocious looking. She was ready.
And what's your favorite kill from part 2?
I mean, we already talked about it, but I think just out of sheer fucking coldness, it has to be the machete to Mark's face.
And it's backwards.
I know, man. The fact that he goes down the damn stairs,
but he gave him the flat part to his face. Like, how fucking hard do you gotta swing to get the flat back part of the machete halfway through his face?
And you could really tell the sound effects were like cutting a melon with that scene, because like when he gets hit with that machete, you hear him yell for a second. You hear but you hear the like that of like his head getting cut with that motherfucker.
This is ridiculous, but every time I see that, it always makes me think of Naked Gun with OJ going down the steps in the wheelchair.
I mean, Naked Gun is a good movie, dude. But yeah, what about you? What's your favorite kill in the movie?
I mean, yeah, it's the wheelchair kill.
I think it has to be.
Jason's just a real dick for that.
Like, I mean,
he don't care about the Americans with Disabilities Act at all.
It's gotta be, look, my man was in a wheelchair, and look,
all
hey, you know what?
All was his fingers. Look, I mean, she was even okay with that.
Yeah, she even says, all I need is your fingers, but of course she's talking about a video game and John's over there trying to.
Oh, she knew what she was talking about.
Damn it, dude. Anyway, so, Jason, he not only attacks a handicapped person, but it's like you got to think that my man really didn't do anything but hit a joint. So it's like, I guess just hitting, even though he was in a wheelchair, Jason still didn't cut him any slack. I mean, I guess he's an equal opportunity offender, but it's just like, damn, bro, like all he did was smoke a J. Like, you really still got to kill the man. There was no sex. I mean, he would have had sex. I mean, Jason cockblocked the shit out of him. Let's put it there. But maybe it was the intent. Maybe it was like, you know what? You smoked half a J or a whole J. I don't know. You smoked a J and you intended to fuck. So, I'm going to have to whack you in the face to get you out of here.
Get you out of here. I got to say, I'll go with the idea from last week's guest, Vincent DeSanti. It's Camp Crystal Lake. That's his grounds. Like, you showed up, so you got to deal with it.
So, yeah, it's not just...
handicap or not, you'll get it too.
Handicap or not, sex or not, it don't matter. Even if you're just smoking a J, not smoking a J, you in the wrong spot, you in the wrong place at the wrong time, it's going down.
My lake, motherfucker. With that, I think it's time to get into Burn and Learn, the segment of our show where we fill you in on some cool behind-the-scenes facts about the movie in discussion, and in this case, Friday the 13th, Part 2.
Ooh. Burn and learn.
Due to an obsessive fan stalking Adrienne King, she requested only to be in Friday the 13th Part 2 briefly.
Tom Savini, Sean Cunningham, and Betsy Palmer have all said that it was stupid because Jason shouldn't have been alive the whole time.
The look of Jason was derived from the killer in The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
This design was chosen because the costume designer thought a sack mask would be something Jason could legitimately have acquired.
I mean, that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
Unmasked Jason Warrington Gillette auditioned for the role of Paul, but didn't get it. However, he made a big enough impression that they kept him around as Jason.
Amy Steele cuts Steve Dash's finger on accident with the machete at the end of the film. Steve had to get stitches and resume filming when he was stitched up.
Warrington Gillette is the shortest person to ever play Jason at 6'1".
To date, no other final girl has returned to the Friday the 13th series for a sequel but Adrienne King.
In the poster for Friday the 13th Part 2, Jason is holding an axe. No axe is used to kill anyone in the movie, but he plants one for Paul and Ginny to find in Jeff and Sandra's bed.
Facts. Supposedly, Jason was created in one day by Carl Fullerton.
Tom Savini didn't want to do Friday the 13th Part 2 because he said Friday the 13th was over and there was no story left to tell that Jason shouldn't be alive. So he worked on the burning instead of returning to do the effects on Friday the 13th Part 2.
The working title for the film was just Jason.
All right, well, now it's time to talk to our guest for today, the lovely Lauren Marie Taylor. Our guest today has had iconic and memorable roles in Friday the 13th Part 2 as Vickie and Girls' Night Out as Sheila. Welcome, Scream Queen, Lauren Marie Taylor. Thank you for being on High on Horror.
Dude, thanks for inviting me. This was so off the cuff to meet you guys at the convention a couple weekends ago. And yeah, it was really, it's really cool to do something just that I wouldn't normally be expected to do.
Absolutely, and we're thrilled to have you, especially after our discussion that we'll get into a little later. First off, let me just ask you, how are you doing? How are things?
We're doing great. We're up here, up north of you guys, obviously. Just went through the hurricane. We had a hurricane that went through, chopping up some trees, getting the old chainsaw out, doing the chainsaw massacre on the trees out there. So yeah, got a puppy, busy with that. It's like having a newborn baby. Yeah, and looking forward to it. It's the 40th anniversary of Friday the 13th Part 2, so I'm doing a lot of interesting appearances, like at old movie theaters and drive-ins. So it's a cool summer. Cool. It's a very cool summer. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, well, let's get into edibles. We discussed how you like to indulge in edibles. So we're curious, what kind of edibles do you enjoy? Do you like candy or gummies, or it doesn't matter? We go to Massachusetts often, where we have a little bit of a country home, and everything is legal there. And I started out with gummies because that's all they had at the place that we go to at the time. I guess I can't say the name of the place, but anyway, that's all they had. They were out of everything. And then I discovered the cookies, and those were pretty awesome. Friends of ours you like
came
the baked
over
goods.
And they brought me. Yeah, I like the baked goods, the chocolates. I'm really into the infused chocolates. And then a friend of mine came over, and I'm not a big sweets person. I like my ice cream and whatever. I really love ice cream. Maybe they can infuse it in ice cream. I don't know. Maybe they do that already. But she brought over cookies for me, and those were gone. They were gone. So I'm really into the edibles. I'm not a big smoker. You can ask my husband. I think I can count on one hand the amount of times I've smoked, and I usually laugh my ass off and then fall asleep. So I'm really a boring smoker. And obviously in Friday the 13th Part 2, it was pretty obvious. I didn't know how to hold it when I said toke. And anybody who watches that movie and remembers that scene says, "You don't smoke, do you?" And I said, "How can you tell?" And they said, "The way you held it and said, toke."
Yeah, that was the story you had told us at the convention, but have you gained any more experience smoking since then?
No, I did try it, I guess about 3 months ago or so with a pipe thingy. I'm so lame, right? I mean, I'm a girl from the 60s. Okay. You would think I would be totally on board and with the program. But I grew up in a really strict Catholic household. So, yeah. But I mean, I was exposed to hookahs growing up because we went to Turkey, the country turkey. We didn't like go inside of a turkey. We just went to the country turkey, and the hookahs were big. And I was like, oh, I wonder what everybody's smoking. And of course, I was like 10 or 11 or 12 years old, and I didn't know what was going on, but I got wind of it. So the secondhand smoke, like I can feel that secondhand smoke coming at me right now. So yeah, I have tried to smoke it again up here. But again, I do what I do best. I laugh my ass off, maybe have sex and fall asleep. Promptly. I'm like a guy, I have sex and fall asleep.
Sounds like a good time.
It is a good time, actually. I must admit, my husband is very appreciative.
And you were talking about weed ice cream. Actually, when I was in Colorado, they had these little custards that were infused with it, and they're amazing.
I'm flying out there.
You definitely should. I found them in Denver.
Definitely flying out there. I haven't been there in 28 years, and I guess a lot has changed.
Now, do you try vapes, or is it just strictly edibles for you?
It's strictly edibles. Yeah. I mean, smoking is just a completely different thing. I'm just not good at it. Like I said, I didn't even smoke cigarettes. Everybody smoked cigarettes in the 70s. I didn't. So smoking, I'm one of those people who goes, really lame. I'm like, Steve Carell and the 40-year-old virgin, I'm just like, I just can't do it. So edibles are really, and then what happens though, here's the problem with the edibles, especially the ones that are baked for me by my friends. I'll not feel it right away because I'm not used to it. I mean, I like having my wine, but I'm not used to that. So when I have one, I'm like, nothing's happening. Meanwhile, everybody who's smoking, it's like, ooh, they're like, yeah, and all terrestrial, extraterrestrial and stuff like that. I'll have the edible and it takes time, so I'll just keep eating them.
We've all been there.
Oh my God. I can't see for a few days.
Yeah, once the train's rolling, it doesn't stop, right?
Yeah, it's like being on the top of the roller coaster all the time for me because my body's not used to it because I don't do it that often.
Well, I personally would like to see you take a massive bong rip. I would like to see how you handle that.
It would be a sight
Maybe next time we
see.
meet up at a convention.
Yeah, when we're down there where it's legal. Yeah. I mean, in New York, where I live, it will be legal, so I don't, have to go to Massachusetts and whatnot. I mean, I could probably, like I said, get it medically because I do have underlying conditions. Like I've been married for 38 years. I think that's an underlying condition.
I'm not going to disagree with you. Well, when we met you at Monster Mania, honestly, you were so kind, and even right now, you're such a nice person, and that made me want to ask you. Vickie is kind of like the good girl in Friday the 13th Part 2. So I'm like, did playing her come naturally to you? Because it just seems like you're just such an outgoing person, and she was very outgoing. So I thought I was like, I'm going to ask her that because I would like to know.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up, like I said earlier, in a very strict Catholic home, and I was very shy growing up. I was kind of the dorky, geeky girl in the Bronx. And, we were in we grew up in a tenement across the street from the cemetery in the Bronx. So I grew up very sheltered and also very shy. So even in high school, I was in a private school that I had a scholarship to. So I was out of my league in terms of socioeconomics. So I always felt second best. And I brought that to Vickie because, here you've got the final girl, of course, Amy Steele's a gorgeous blonde who's, out there and athletic and older. And then you've got Kirsten Baker, the hottie, and Marta Kober, of course, the precocious one. So my role was the all-American sweetheart girl who kind of saw herself as not in the same league in terms of that ooh la la thing as the other girls. So I played up that for Vickie.
Yeah, I like I said, I can tell. But the funny thing about Vickie is that she is very wholesome and very generous and kind. But I do get why Jason, takes her out, because I mean, you are in the end trying to get freaky. So I mean, I guess intent does count as well as actually doing it.
Yeah, yeah. She likes to get a little freaky, but I think he also took her out because he's like, dude, what's up with the underwear? These brown undies, that's not working. You got to sex those up, put some, well, anyway.
Well, when you were filming Friday the 13th Part 2, was there ever anything on the set about anybody, like the actors or the directors or anybody, expecting it to be a hit? Because at this point, the first one had come out and it was a hit. So was there like a lot of hype on the second one? Like everybody knew it was going to be something?
No, not at all. Friday the 13th had just come out, and there wasn't this whole cult thing that was going on with horror at the time. We had Halloween, that was a big one. And then our franchise started. So it was just the very beginning of the franchise. And I know we didn't feel it. We were just like there doing our jobs and thought, oh, yeah, this is kind of cool. We get to see this guy sort of grown up or whatever age he is in the movie, maybe late teens or early 20s. And we really didn't expect it to be a franchise. We just thought, yeah, it's part two. And actually, it wasn't even called Friday the 13th Part 2. On the script, it said Jason. It didn't say Friday the 13th Part 2. It was originally called Jason.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool to know. I know a lot about Friday the 13th Part 2, and I actually did not know that. So that's really cool to know. Thank you for that.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, that's cool though. It seems like the people who are always in the big movies that last forever, where they're still talking about it like 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years later, it's always, nobody ever expects it. Who was on the set is always kind of just like, yeah, it was just a movie at the time. So it's pretty crazy. I'm sure looking back thinking, damn, Friday the 13th Part 2 is still like being mentioned constantly.
Yeah, I mean, I had no idea. People ask me, well, do you still have the clothes that you wore, that funny sweater that you got killed in? And I said, no, actually, they held on to those things because if they needed to reshoot stuff, they needed those clothes. So I didn't get to keep anything except my white moccasins that were all bloodied. I did bring those home, but I was like, oh, they're
Oh
really
man,
gross
they didn't
at
let
that
you keep the
point.
brown underwear?
No, I burn those in effigy. Oh, no, I don't even, I talk about this all the time. I don't even own a pair of brown underwear. I mean, if you look, I'm very organized. So if you look in my drawer, they're organized according to type and color. So I'll have like the boy shorts and then the athletic ones. And then I've got like the lacy ones and, the ones that show your buttocks, your derriere. So they're all very organized. And if you look at the rows that I have organized, you will not find a pair of brown undies, not even close. I mean, the closest you get to brown is burgundy. Yeah.
So you're just against it completely, like, nope, that was a one and done.
Oh, listen. Yeah, totally. Totally. I must have about 100 pairs of underwear. Not one of them is brown.
I personally think brown is a poor choice in underwear color myself. Let me ask you something. Did you get to spend much time with? Cheers. Did you get to spend much time with Steve Dash? The real Jason, Sackhead Jason. Did you get to spend much time with him, and how was he interacting with him?
Not really at all. Steve Dash, he was our stunt guy. So whenever something needed to be done, he would do the stunt for various people. Not for me. Those were my real feet coming down the stairs. I was there mostly when Warrington was getting his makeup done. I actually have a bunch of pictures of that. So when the face that comes through the window, that's Warrington Gillette with all of the makeup on. So when he does other stuff with the sack head on, that's Steve Dash who took over as the stunt guy. Yeah. But even coming down the steps, it was one of the crew guys, Jerry Wallace, who dragged me down the steps and who actually came out of the bed. That was like so real. Who came out of the bed with the knife? That was actually one of our crew guys, dressed in the outfit with the sack head.
Okay, yeah. See, I did not know that. I thought that was Steve Dash. So there you go. Another fact that you hit us with that was well received. Thank you.
Yeah, in fact, when I was invited to my first convention some time ago, Steve Dash was there. And I kind of looked at him because I had just seen Warrington. He was in the city, he was in New York, and he called me. And he's like, "Hey, what are you doing? You want to come to lunch?" I'm like, okay, whatever. Hadn't seen him in years. And then when I got invited to a convention, I see Dash Jason. I'm like, wait, what? Warrington Gillette was Jason. I was like, oh, wait, Steve Dash was our stunt guy. Okay, I get it. I didn't know what was going on in that world of conventions and who played who. And yeah, under what capacity. Yeah.
Okay, well, here's something that I've always wondered. I don't know if you're familiar. I'm sure you're familiar with this, but there's an Italian filmmaker named Mario Bava, and he did a film called A Bay of Blood, aka Twitch of the Death Nerve, and two films in Friday the 13th Part Two are taken like directly from that movie. There's the scene with where Sandra and Jeff get impaled through the bed, and then
Oh,
Mark eating and Mark eating the machete to the face. So I was wondering, nobody's ever admitted to like, yeah, we saw that movie and that's where we referenced. So have you ever heard anything on the set like of that movie being mentioned or anything?
no, never mentioned.
Okay.
No, not at all. It was always very, it's funny because a lot of sets are very social and fun, especially Neighbors with Belushi and Aykroyd. That was a super fun, super social set. Great time, best time of my life, by the way. But Friday the 13th, I think maybe because we were filming at night and because you're awake all day and then all of a sudden you're filming at night, it was very business as usual. So it was just about getting the scenes done, not really a lot of talking about the script or who
Okay.
the idea person was or anything like that. No, now you got me curious though.
Yeah, you should check it out. Definitely check it out. A Bay of Blood is a very good movie.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of horror, they take from different things. I mean, especially if you look at modern horror or modern uh, psychological dramas, you'll see a lot of the shining in things, and you'll see just little pieces of the shining, little pieces of
Absolutely.
Silence of the Lambs, little pieces of the Exorcist. And you're like, wait, they stole that from the Exorcist. They stole that from the shining, from the classics. So, there's just, I mean, horror is horror, and there are many ways to inflict disaster and terror. But eventually, it goes full circle, I think.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think every genre kind of does that. I think comedies suffer the same thing where it's like
Oh,
everything,
absolutely. Rom
every genre
coms.
is self-referential.
Yeah, yeah. Rom coms, it's always the same. Everybody's crying, and ugh. I don't like rom coms, sorry.
Well, no, one of my things that I always told my wife, and my wife, her eyes were like huge when I brought this point up to her. Was I was like, everybody always says horror's cliche because you have the girl that's screaming and running in the woods and tripping. But why does nobody ever call out the fact that every time you're watching a comedy, whether it's a romance comedy or a buddy comedy, that's we're having fun in the beginning, mid movie there's a fight or a breakup, some sad song plays, they go about their own way, and then at the end they come back together and it's a happy ending. That is literally the story of Dumb and Dumber, The Hangover, like anything you could think of. And it's like, why? But everybody just points the finger at horror. Horror is cliche. I think that's bullshit.
I agree with you. I cannot watch stuff like The Notebook, or, Marley and Me. I don't want to see dead dogs. I don't want to see ghosts of ex-boyfriends. Just kill them. I don't care. What? It's terrible. Not the dogs, the dead boyfriends. Just keep them dead. Sorry.
Just the people.
Oops. Yeah, just the people, not the animals. I don't want to see movies. My husband's always like, but it's supposed to be a good movie. I said, no, the dog dies. I'm not going to watch anything about a dog dying. Sorry, not happening. Lassie, go home, stay home. Don't go anywhere. Just stay home.
Well, you had actually brought up Neighbors, and I wanted to bring that up to you, or Bad Neighbors, as it's referred to sometimes. That was kind
Oh,
of
well.
remade in 2014 with Seth Rogen and Zac Efron. Did you see that one?
I didn't see it because I thought it was more, it wasn't a I don't know that it was a remake of our movie because our movie was about a family
It's
that,
like a loose
you know,
remake.
Yeah, I didn't see it, so I can't really comment on it, but our neighbors was definitely a great experience. Yeah. Speaking
That's
of
great.
weed
Yeah.
and stoners and stuff, yeah.
All right. Well, another movie that I wanted to talk about was I'm an advocate for Girls' Night Out. I think that is such an underrated slasher film. And could you tell us how it was making that one?
Oh, do you want me to call my husband up here? I married the guy who played Bostwick.
Oh, are you serious? That's your husband?
Yeah, I married him.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. That is awesome.
Yeah, and he's a super stoner. I shouldn't say that. Oh my God. I hope nobody might out. Yeah. I can text him right now and say, hey, get your arse up here if you want. Like real
Yeah,
quick.
sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, that was that movie was definitely, I always tell people, hold on, this is gonna be funny. I'm gonna call him. This is how we do it in our house. Let me call him. He's gonna hear. Wait. He probably won't answer. He'll be like, what is this chick calling me for in our own home? All right. He's probably slow.
Hello.
Hey, hon, can you come upstairs for a minute, please?
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
He's actually really in a pissy mood because the dog jumped, the puppy, I think it was the puppy, he doesn't think it was, he thinks it was the old dog, jumped up on the counter and ate his bun for his sandwich. He smoked like ribs or something, and he had what was left of it, and the dog stole his bun.
Oh, I'd be pissed too.
Oh, okay. See, I don't eat meat, so I was just kind of like, oh, whoops, that happened. That movie was kind of a fog for me because I was coming off of doing Neighbors, which was mind-blowing for me, the most incredible experience of my life. And, going to Meatloaf concerts and Adam and the Ants and partying with Carrie Fisher and all those people, it was just mind-blowing. So doing Girls' Night Out was kind of right on the heels of Neighbors. So it's kind of a fog for me because I was still involved with the Neighbors crew and the guys, so I was sort of sleepwalking through Girls' Night Out until I met that guy. Here.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys didn't know I married Bostwick.
No, I had no idea.
Here. Yeah, it's a little dark in here, so hold on. There he is. Here, come on. Oh wait, you're gonna go on that side? Oh, okay, yeah. Here he is. Yeah, see, so now you get a 2-for-1. You got Bostwick here without the glasses.
Hey, what's up, man?
Put the glasses on. Wait, put the glasses on.
Yeah, sure, here we go.
See, now he looks like Bostwick.
Oh yeah, there it is. Hey man, I'm Drew, and this is my co-host John over here.
I can't hear you. So.
Oh, that's right. He can't hear you. Oh, sorry.
You can relay the message to him if you want. You could be the translator.
Okay, so what do I tell him? Hold on. Say it again.
I just want both of you. Could you just tell us like how it was filming Girls' Night Out? Like, what does he remember, and how did you guys end up together?
Okay, so here, put this in.
Okay.
What was it like filming Girls' Night Out, and what was it like falling in love and on set and meeting each other and stuff?
It was the cheesiest film in the world. The director was awesome. I mean, Robert Duvall, remember?
It was all from here. Act from here.
Oh yeah, he was the quintessential B movie director. It was interesting being around him. I remember being in a taxi once with him, and we were trying to come up with the name of the film. And there were like 5 of us in this cab, and everybody was throwing out these horrible names, including me. And we didn't find the name that night. It was a surprise to me when it was called Girls' Night Out.
Yeah, it was originally. Tell them it was originally Scaremaker.
Final Clue.
Scaremaker.
Yeah, there were all kinds of.
And
so
then
anyway,
Girls' Night Out.
So I'm sorry, you've probably been over this before. But
No.
No, not at all. I just, like I said, John and I, my co-host and I are big advocates of the film, and we just, think it's underrated, and we just, wanted to know what it was like making it.
Oh. I met her.
That's great. So how long have you two been together now then?
I mean, look at that. I mean, what is it, 38 years? We've been married 38 years, guys. We met on that
38
film.
years. That's incredible.
38
That's
years
incredible.
ago.
Congratulations.
40 years ago.
Yeah, 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's what I remember most from that film.
So let me ask you while you're here, do you keep Lauren nice and fed on edibles, or is that all her going out on her own?
Hey, listen, it was a weird, about 3 years ago, my sister, who doesn't smoke pot, and she never smoked pot. So they, it, they, there was a chance to do some edibles. And so for the first time, after knowing her for more than 30 years, she was willing to do it. And so was my sister on the same night. So I got to be there when they got stoned on these things, and it was different.
It was Easter. Tell them it was Easter.
How was the reaction? Was she super baked, or was she handling it?
Laughed. She was very
just laughed.
Yeah, she was really happy and laughed, and then fell asleep.
That's great. That's great. That's I think that's great that you two are still together and everything. And thank you for popping on here and talking about Girls Night Out with us, man. We appreciate it.
Oh yeah. All right, and it was nice meeting you guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-oh. I'm afraid to ask, were you guys doing boy talk?
No.
No, not at all. Not at all. I asked him, I just wanted to ask him how he got, does he keep you fed on edibles, or is that you going out and doing it?
Yeah, no, our friends buy them for me. So, and then, yeah. I don't do them all the time. I have to, yeah.
Well, okay, so one more question before I send you over to John here. I just wanted to say that your death was brutal in Girls Night Out. Like the bear gets you with the blade claws across your throat. I know you said like filming that was like a blur to you, but do you remember that death? Like, was that unpleasant to film? Was it fun?
Yeah, it was fun. And, it's so funny because after that one and Friday the 13th, they actually started calling me in to dub other girls' screams in other movies. So when you say a scream queen, I actually have dubbed in, I would say at least 7 or 8 movies for screams for other people. And my lips are sealed. But yeah.
That's awesome to know. And going back to Friday 13th Part 2, how did you become involved with the movie?
Oh, okay. Yes. So I've been doing a lot of TV commercials in New York at the time, straight out of high school and into college. And one of the casting directors moved into casting movies, and she was casting Friday the 13th Part 2. And they were looking for, types, like I said earlier, the sexy type, this type, the athletic type. And they were looking for the all-American girl. And that's what I was known as, the all-American sweetheart. And they called up my agent. They said, hey, we have a, something for her to audition for. Is she interested in doing, a movie, blah, blah, blah. And my agent was like, well, yeah, of course, And I got sent in, and it was the casting director. And sorry, my cats are fighting. Better my cats than my dogs. And, I read for it, and I got the part, like that. Very much like Neighbors, just got the part right away. And that was kind of cool. Yeah. But I didn't know what to expect, because I hadn't seen Friday the 13th, the original. And actually, none of us had. I mean, it had just come out when we were being cast in Part 2. And what they had us do is they had us go to the Directors Guild of America to a screening of it and watch it. And the New York-based people. And we just sat there like this. Like, Jack Nicholson at the end of Shining, like that. And we all looked at each other because none of the actors were known at that point, including Kevin Bacon, who I worked with off Broadway. And we're all just sitting there like, what? And I finally turned to, I think it was Bill Randolph, and I said, is this a snuff film? Do they really kill you? Because it looked so real to me. I had no idea.
And have you watched any of the other Friday movies after yours?
I did watch the remake that came out. It's so funny because everybody asks me that. And, if they're on, I'll start to watch it. But I've just been so busy through the years. And, hey, come on, guys, stop fighting. Sorry. Cat fight, really. So I really haven't. I'd like to watch them at least a few of them before going to the next appearance this weekend in Atlanta to Days of the Dead because, Kane is going to be there and he's such a card and he was at Monster Mania a couple of weekends ago. And I felt so bad that I hadn't seen his Fridays. I know he did a few. So no, I saw the remake and I was just kind of shocked because I thought, what happened to the characters? They were all a lot of jumbling going on, if you know what I mean. And we didn't have that back then. We had a little bit, of jumbling going on and, Kirsten with her hot bod, which I still tell her to this day. I'm like, Kirsten, I just based my life on trying to look like you and it just never happened. Ran marathons and I still didn't have that butt. I mean, geez. So yeah, that's, I really should watch them, but I just haven't. It's so weird. It's weird.
Well, if you're trying to watch the Kane ones, you just got to watch 7, 8, Jason Goes to Hell, and Jason X. That's the 4 that Kane was in.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, I know he was in the last group. Yeah.
Yeah, 6 is my favorite, and 4 is Drew's favorite.
Okay, 6 and 4. Okay, even numbers. 2, 4, and 6.
And did you have any special memories from making part 2 that you think back on?
It was just the camaraderie that was going on there. We slept at the camp. We didn't sleep in a hotel. Now, of course, the union would be like, what the F is going on here? You got to put these people in a nice hotel with air conditioning and heating. This is ridiculous. Where's their per diem? Where's their food? We didn't have any of that back in, we filmed it in 1980. So the camaraderie was really awesome. We all lived at the camp. We all ate together. We all spent our days together. Kirsten and I would go running. She got me into running and exercising. And that's really what I remember about that. Just that whole playing checkers during our off time and hanging out. And sorry, I'm just really excited about that because, yeah, I don't usually talk about the experience of hanging out with people. So that's really what I remember the most about it. And we all, even if we weren't filming, we hung out at the Packanack Lodge to support each other while we were all filming. And that was really cool.
And now, recently you were involved in the fan film Friday the 13th, 9 Lives. What was it like working on a Friday project again?
Well, actually, it was funny because I know another one, his name was Jason, was another fan film. I wasn't involved with that, but I went to this the premiere of that, where they actually filmed, Ron Milkey, who was Officer Dorff. They filmed him. With mine, it was just on my phone, and then I sent it in. So it was a very limited thing. And that was kind of cool to be asked to do that. And I enjoyed the premise of it. And I might use the premise of it to post something, on Instagram, at Warrington Gillette or something down the line. I might use that premise. So I haven't done it yet because I need somebody to take the picture of the idea that I have. So I'll just put it this way. It involves a firearm.
And when you filmed part 2, was there anything specifically you wanted to bring to the character of Vickie?
I really just wanted her to be real. I didn't want her to be like something that she wasn't. I just wanted her to be what I was cast to do, which is a typical American early college student, just getting along with everybody and being nice. That's really just what I wanted to bring to it. I didn't want her to die. I felt bad for her because she was such a nice girl. And, but yeah, that's really all I wanted to do.
And we can't thank you enough for joining us today. Part 2 is one of the best in the series. I mean, we're still talking about it 40 years later, and we definitely appreciate you talking to us about it.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. This is really cool and highly unusual, talking about things I never talk about.
And you mentioned Instagram. Where can people find you on Instagram?
Yeah, I'm only on Instagram. It's just my name, Lauren Marie Taylor, with the number 1 behind it. No dots, no hyphens, no special things, no happy faces, even though I'm a happy person. Wait a minute, I can't say that because I want medical marijuana. Just kidding. But thanks, though, for having me on. You guys are really cool, and it was so great to meet you in person. It's just really nice to meet people in person that, you are chatting with.
Yes. And yes, thank you again for joining us.
It was a true pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good luck to you guys, too.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll see you at the next con, probably.
Take care.
I'll show you my brown underwear. Wait, did they hear that? Whoops. Oh.
We'll cut that part out.
Oh, no. Actually, you can leave it in. It's okay.
Okay. Thanks to all the horror hounds and smokers out there for tuning in. And thank you to the wonderful Laura Marie Taylor for joining us today. And that was a pretty cool surprise that we got John Diedrichson, who played Boswick in Girls Night Out. Thank you for joining us as well. It's good to know Lauren has moved on from those ugly brown panties from part 2. And join us next week when we're joined by Stacey Nelkin, who played Ellie in Halloween 3. And I still say Halloween 3 is the second best Halloween in the series behind the original. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Instabook Twitter at High on Horror 420. And you can email us at highonhorror420@gmail.com. Make sure to check out the website, highonhorror.com, and sign up for our newsletters so you never miss out on an episode. Thank you to Josh, as always, for editing our episode and for our theme song. And that'll about wrap her up. Catch you later.
Bye, everybody.